The dense air of the Manhattan Global Market, saturated with the intoxicating aromas of gourmet coffees, rare imported spices, and the sweetness of fine pastries, enveloped Chloe Davis like a heavy, inviting veil. She moved among the vibrant crowd, a whirlwind of colors, voices, and scents that felt like a page torn from a grand bygone era, yet shimmered with the distant gleam of modern skyscrapers. Her brown eyes, accustomed to the verdant landscapes of Toledo, Ohio, now marveled at the golden and earthy tones of the Sterling legacy, enveloping her in its unique splendor. The camera hanging from her neck, an old and trusty travel companion, was both her shield and her window to the world, capturing the soul of each face, every gesture, every detail of local life unfolding before her. Chloe, a freelance photographer and aspiring photojournalist from Ohio, with an unquiet soul and a tight budget, felt like a stranger in paradise, a privileged observer, yet always on the periphery. The vibrant culture, the haute couture fashion, the assessing gazes, and the unspoken rules fascinated and intimidated her in equal measure. It was also different from the familiar bustle and candidness of her Midwestern upbringing, where interaction was direct and warm. Here there was a veiled formality, an ancestral respect she was just beginning to decipher. She passionately captured the imagined flying carpets in the piles of luxurious fabrics, the sparkle of jewels that seemed like captured stars, the enigmatic smile of a tea merchant. Every click was an attempt to unravel that golden mystery. Amidst her artistic immersion, a local guide, Kevin Lee, whom she had hired for a few hours to help her navigate the maze of streets, hastily pointed to an ornate entrance, gesticulating something in rushed English about art and exhibition. Chloe, still lost in thought and processing the image she had just captured of a renowned art collector, waved distractedly, convinced he was indicating a contemporary art gallery she had read about in her tourist guide. Ah, how marvelous! Another hidden gem, she thought, her heart pounding with curiosity. Without hesitation, she followed what she believed was the path, entering a corridor that opened beyond the market. The atmosphere shifted dramatically. The chaotic yet welcoming bustle of the Manhattan Global Market gave way to an opulent, almost reverent silence. The air, once dense with scents and sounds, was now crisp and fragrant with something ethereal, an essence of high-end sandalwood and jasmine that lingered in the atmosphere. The polished marble floor reflected the intricately carved arches and the baccarat crystal chandeliers that hung from the high ceiling like waterfalls of light. The sounds of her own footsteps, previously muffled by the crowd, now echoed with an almost frightening clarity. Chloe advanced, her camera still hanging, swaying slightly with each step. She expected to find informative panels, modern artworks, or perhaps an exhibition of classical art. Instead, she found herself in a labyrinth of richly decorated corridors, each door a masterpiece of marquetry and gilded carvings. She was, unknowingly, entering the private west wing of the Sterling Manor, a sacred space inaccessible to outsiders, the pulsating heart of the Sterling dynasty's power and tradition. Her ingenuousness, combined with her passion for discovering the unexpected, had led her to a place where she should not be. The silence was so profound that she could hear her own heart beating, a quickened rhythm that was not just excitement, but a pang of apprehension. Where could this gallery be? Am I lost? She murmured to herself, her voice sounding far too loud in the setting. She tried to orient herself, looking around, admiring the details, but starting to feel a chill in her stomach. It was then that, inattentive and perhaps a little lost in her own thoughts, she opened the wrong door. There was no sign, no warning, just a slightly ajar door that seemed to invite passage. The room that revealed itself exuded masculinity and power. The air was heavy with the aroma of a bespoke, woody niche perfume, and sunlight filtered through intricate trellises, painting patterns of light and shadow on deep-colored, authentic Oriental rugs. There were hardcover books on history, finance, and art piled on dark wooden shelves, ancient artifacts, and an imposing ebony desk. It was a space of contemplation, of authority, of absolute privacy. Chloe belatedly realized her error, her eyes wide, her mouth agape in a small, inaudible O. And then she saw him. In the center of the room, near a window that offered a stunning view of the Sterling secret garden below, stood Julian Sterling. He was not in formal attire, but relaxed, wearing a tailored cashmere robe that accentuated the breadth of his shoulders. His dark hair fell slightly over his forehead, and his eyes, like two polished black olives, were fixed on a distant point, perhaps on the New York skyline, perhaps in deep thought. A discreet, almost imperceptible scar crossed his left temple, adding a touch of mystery to his imposing beauty. He was in a moment of introspection, of calm, when the door opened and Chloe, an intruder with sun-kissed skin and frightened eyes, invaded his sanctuary. Julian Sterling raised his head, his dark eyes fixing on Chloe. The shock was mutual, a heavy silence filling the space between them. She, with her camera hanging, a free spirit from Ohio, a fish out of water in that gilded and formal world. He, the CEO of Sterling Enterprises, a man accustomed to power and obedience, caught by surprise by a young woman who represented everything different and unexpected. The tension was palpable, a cultural and personal clash that would define the tone of the story about to unfold. This initial encounter was not merely a mistake, a slight misstep for Chloe, but the trigger for a collision of worlds, a promise of forbidden passion and cultural challenges that would make the ground tremble beneath their feet. That wrong door had just opened a portal to a destiny neither of them could have imagined. The soft click of the door closing behind her, in the oppressive silence of the suite, resonated like thunder in Chloe's ears. The air felt denser, charged with a palpable tension that was not rage, but an almost animalistic curiosity. Chloe Davis remained motionless, eyes wide, heart pounding in her chest like a caged hummingbird. The realization of her grave error, of the unauthorized intrusion into such a private and opulent space, hit her like a chilling wave. She tried to formulate an apology, words tumbling over each other in her mouth, a tangled mess of hurried, hesitant English she barely articulated. I'm so sorry. I think I've made a terrible mistake. I'm in the wrong room, she stammered, hands trembling, cold sweat trickling down her nape. Her eyes, once filled with awe for the manor's beauty, now reflected pure dread. Julian Sterling did not move, nor did he show any sign of irritation. His eyes, a deep, penetrating shade, swept over Chloe with an intensity that made her feel utterly exposed, as if he could read every thought, every accelerated beat of her heart. There was no fury in his gaze, only an unusual, almost amused intrigue. In his world of corporate machinations, calculated alliances and relationships, always governed by self-interest, Chloe's spontaneity and lack of malice were a breath of fresh air, something he had not encountered in a long time. Her innocence was almost palpable, a purity he, accustomed to the sophistication and veiled nuances of high society, found utterly fascinating. He questioned her, not with the authoritative voice of an angry magnate, but with the calm curiosity of a man who had stumbled upon something utterly unexpected. "Who are you? How did you come to be here? What do you seek in my manor, outsider?" His voice was grave yet smooth, an unexpected balm to Chloe's nerves, though the intensity of his gaze continued to disarm her. Chloe, still trembling, yet finding a strange courage in Julian's lack of anger, began to speak. She revealed her passion for photography, her incessant search for beauty and authenticity in every corner of the world. She spoke of Ohio, of the honest light she sought in every landscape, of her desire to capture the soul of places and people. Every word was a fragment of her pure heart, a window into her dreaming, vulnerable soul. She mentioned her camera, her shield and window to the world, which rested inside her worn backpack, forgotten in some corner of the corridor. It was this vulnerability, this genuine passion for something so simple and beautiful, that ignited something within Julian. He observed her, absorbing every detail, from the sparkle in her eyes when she spoke of photography to the way she bit her lower lip, a sign of nervousness. He did not cast her out, nor did he punish her. Instead, he made a gesture with his hand, inviting her closer, and his tone became even lower, almost a seductive murmur. "Come, Chloe Davis. I sense that destiny has brought you to me." He took a step closer, the distance between them diminishing. The aura of power that surrounded him was undeniable, yet now it was intertwined with a dangerous magnetism. His eyes never left hers, and Chloe felt a shiver trace down her spine, a mixture of fear and forbidden curiosity. He leaned in slightly, his warm breath bearing a unique, deep fragrance brushing her ear, and whispered the phrase that would echo in her mind for a long time. "I will teach you what true pleasure is." The proposal was shocking, an invitation that defied every convention Chloe had ever known. Julian Sterling was not proposing punishment, but a game. She would be his guest for 1 week, immersed in his world of luxury, sensuality, and secrets she could never have imagined. It would be a journey of discovery, an immersion in the arts of pleasure, an unveiling of senses that would deconstruct and then rebuild her. In return, at the end of the week, she would regain her freedom and a wealth that would liberate her from any financial worry. It was not a proposal of enslavement, but of a unique experience, a test for both, a silent pact between predator and prey, where rules seemed dictated by a higher power. The offer was seductive in its audacity and dangerous in its implications. Chloe felt a whirlwind of emotions, the initial shock, the fear of the unknown and of such a powerful man, but also an undeniable curiosity, an attraction to danger she never imagined herself capable of. She realized that Julian was not merely a man of unquestionable power and authority, but an elegant predator who saw in her more than a mere intruder. The proposal was a golden trap, yes, shimmering so brightly it could blind, promising not just luxury, but an experience she had never even dared to dream of. But the exit, seemed uncertain, even with the promise of freedom and wealth. She found herself in a profound dilemma, her heart torn between escape and the temptation to plunge into that unknown abyss. What would she do? Her innocence would be put to the test, and her world on the verge of being turned upside down. Julian's proposal reverberated within Chloe's mind with the force of a thunderclap. It was not merely an offer, but an abyss, a precipice between the life she knew and a future utterly unfathomable. Fear of the unknown commingled with a dangerous allure, an electric current drawing her in, and an almost irresistible curiosity that seemed to possess a life of its own within her. Her life had been a succession of moments, many tinged with monotony, an incessant, often frustrating quest for something truly alive, beyond her photographs. She yearned for depth, for hues more vibrant than her daily existence afforded. The CEO's offer, though shocking and beyond her reality, represented a gateway to a world she had never conceived. It was as if life in her predictable routine as a photojournalist had suddenly unveiled a portal to a dimension of grand, Gatsby-esque narratives or profound challenges. A part of her, ever seeking novelty and adventure, yearned to unravel the mysteries of pleasure and passion Julian promised with hypnotic confidence. Wealth was a factor, secondary perhaps. Such a sum could aid her family in Toledo, Ohio, alleviating hardships. It would settle bills, renovate her grandmother's house, and leave a substantial sum for her photography, perhaps even a studio. But the true captivation was the adventure, the chance to know herself deeper, to test limits, to feel truly desired by such a powerful man. She weighed the risks, numerous, heavy as stones in her chest, the forfeiture of her innocence not merely physical but a cherished purity of spirit, the surrender to an enigma, a mystery cloaked in bespoke silk and power, whose intentions, however inviting, remained obscure, the shattering of her principles, everything she learned about love, respect, and freedom. A part of her screamed to flee, to grasp her camera and vanish into the bustling urban tapestry to disappear. Yet the force of attraction, the gnawing curiosity within her, and the promise of unrestricted liberty after the week, with a life-altering financial bonus, weighed more heavily in her soul's balance. It was as if destiny presented a singular chance, one of those opportunities only encountered in epic narratives, and she could not turn her back. In an act easily mistaken for courage or purest folly, Chloe made her decision. She raised her eyes, previously fixed on the floor, and met Julian's gaze. A silence heavy with expectation filled the air, so dense it crushed the surrounding oxygen. Her lips moved, and the whispered yes was more a breath than an audible sound, but Julian heard it, capturing it as a treasure. An almost imperceptible smile, a glint in the CEO's dark eyes, and Chloe knew there was no turning back. With her acceptance, the game had begun. No time for regrets. She was immediately ushered into a new chamber, a sanctuary of luxury and comfort, unlike anything she had witnessed, even in the most opulent hotels she'd photographed. Walls adorned with rich silks and brocades, the floor covered by authentic oriental rugs that yielded beneath her feet, the air scented with exquisite, custom-blended fragrances that evoked hidden rooftop gardens and star-dusted Manhattan nights. Every detail seemed meticulously crafted to awaken the senses, to pamper body and soul. A closet replete with haute couture garments, fabrics light and ethereal in vibrant hues, delicate jewelry shimmering under indirect light. A marble bathtub, grand enough for two, exuded aromatic vapors from rare mineral salts and essential oils, promising profound relaxation and renewal. Chloe, accustomed to her backpack's simplicity and hurried hostel showers, felt like a heroine from a grand, Gilded Age romance. It was an overwhelming introduction to a universe of indulgence she had never dared to dream of. Julian, in turn, assumed the role of her mentor with impressive naturalness, a patient, seductive guide who seemed to comprehend the feminine soul better than she herself. He never forced her. Instead, he invited her to explore, to feel, to liberate herself from inhibitions with a delicacy that disarmed her. His voice was a balm, his eyes a silent invitation. The first lesson was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet profoundly impactful. An intimate dinner in a private dining room of the Sterling Manor, where he instructed her to appreciate haute cuisine not merely with her palate, but with all her senses. Each rare spice, texture, nuanced aroma was dissected by him, elucidating the history behind the dishes, their artistry and harmonization. Chloe, who previously ate merely to sustain herself, now savored each morsel, feeling the explosion of flavors on her tongue, the gentle warmth of exotic spices awakening her senses. Afterward, a promenade through the Sterling Manor's meticulously curated gardens under moonlight, he invited her to observe the city's nocturnal beauty from a novel perspective. "Observe, Chloe," he whispered, gesturing towards the shimmering cityscape. "It is not merely concrete and steel, but an ocean of whispers, a guardian of stories, a mirror for the soul. Feel the breeze, the scent of the night, its profound expanse." He spoke of urban constellations, of dreams the metropolis inspired. Chloe, camera draped around her neck, her shield and window, realized she was not just seeing but feeling, absorbing the essence of a distant place. Her childhood shyness began to disintegrate, yielding to deeper curiosity, an opening to the unknown. Chloe's curiosity, once a faint thread, now unfurled into a vibrant tapestry, inviting her to dive headfirst into that unknown universe. The week that followed in the Sterling Manor was an avalanche of sensations, a true maelstrom that Chloe Davis never imagined experiencing. Far from a hasty or predictable lover, Julian Sterling revealed himself a master in the art of seduction, a true strategist of pleasure who understood that genuine surrender stemmed from the soul and every pore of the skin. He guided her with an almost clinical patience, unfurling her shyness as one peels an exotic fruit, layer by delicate layer, revealing a hidden sweetness. The lessons began subtly, almost imperceptibly. Julian taught her to perceive the world with new eyes, to feel the most delicate textures, to inhale the most inebriating aromas, to savor every nuance of a gourmet dish. It was not about the ultimate act, but about the journey to it, the preparation, the anticipation. Chloe was introduced to beauty rituals that seemed plucked from ancient lore, exclusive spa treatments in a private suite, aromatic baths with rare mineral salts where her skin became as soft as silk, followed by massages with luxury essential oils of jasmine and sandalwood, which glided over her body, awakening every nerve, every termination. She felt the gentle, conditioned breeze within the manor on her skin, no longer as a dry wind, but as a warm caress, a soft whisper. The silence of the night, once an emptiness, was now filled by the distant hum of the city and the pounding of her own heart, accelerated by Julian's proximity. Meals within the Sterling Manor were a spectacle unto themselves. Served in luxurious settings where every detail was meticulously arranged, the dishes were veritable works of art, explosions of colors and flavors that danced on her palate. Julian encouraged her to taste, to describe, to surrender to the Epicurean symphony with the same intensity with which he invited her to surrender to herself. He gifted her with fluid and richly colored garments, light fabrics that enhanced her natural beauty, inviting her to see herself through different eyes, so to embrace the woman who was blossoming. "You are beautiful, Chloe," he whispered, and the compliment coming from such an imposing man sent a delightful warmth spreading through her chest, a shiver that was not from cold. With each passing day, Chloe felt more at ease in her own skin, more comfortable in Julian's magnetic presence. He provoked her with intelligent conversations, challenged her perceptions of the world and of herself, and to her surprise he made her laugh. Yes, Julian Sterling, the powerful and enigmatic CEO, possessed an acute sense of humor, a playful glint in his eyes that revealed a side of him far beyond his facade of authority. She found herself thinking about his witticisms, his sagacious comments, and a silly smile would bloom on her lips. He recounted tales of his family's legacy, of the traditions of old New York, of the guiding stars that once led ancient mariners across vast oceans, and Chloe, the free-spirited photographer, found herself utterly captivated. There were moments of subtle physical contact, almost imperceptible, yet they sent shivers down her spine like the electricity of a distant storm. A light touch on her hand as he explained the origin of a rare imported spice, a brush of shoulders as they strolled through the manor's fragrant rooftop gardens, a prolonged gaze that promised more than 1,000 words. She perceived his scent, an exclusive niche perfume with woody notes and something intrinsically masculine, which intoxicated her. Chloe's innocence, once a protective shield, began to transform into a latent sensuality, an awakening that both surprised and excited her. It was as if a dormant volcano within her had begun to simmer, ready to erupt. She never knew she was capable of feeling so much, of desiring so deeply. What had seemed a superficial, dangerous game deepened into an exploration of her own femininity and her most hidden desires. Chloe began to question everything she knew about pleasure, about love, about herself. What was real? What was fantasy? The sexual tension between them was palpable, an invisible thread that bound them and stretched taut with each interaction, each exchange of glances. Yet Julian maintained rigorous control, a discipline Chloe admired, and that left her even more anxious. He did not force her, did not rush her. He desired her to want, to ask, to surrender of her own volition, not out of obligation or mere caprice. He wanted her to truly desire him, with the same intensity with which he desired her. For Julian, it was not merely about the body, but the mind, the heart, the very soul of Chloe. He wanted every delicate piece of her, and was willing to wait, to construct that connection brick by careful brick. He perceived in her something that deeply attracted him, something beyond her evident beauty, a purity he feared to corrupt, yet which simultaneously compelled him to unravel it. With each passing day, Chloe felt herself falling for him, for that complex and enigmatic man who was teaching her to live, to feel, to desire. And the fear that the week would end and he would let her go as he had promised began to settle in her heart, a tight knot that prevented her from breathing deeply. She was at an impasse, trapped between the promise of freedom and the overwhelming desire to remain in his golden world. The intricate tapestry of her emotions enveloped her like the finest silk, simultaneously luxurious and yet subtly suffocating. Chloe found herself in a cul-de-sac, yes, but with each passing day within the opulent Sterling manor, she felt its walls transform into a labyrinth. Every turn revealed a new facet of Julian Sterling, and by extension of herself. The image of the relentless CEO, the seasoned seducer who had drawn her into a dangerous game, began to yield to something profoundly deeper, more human. It was an essence that intrigued her, drawing her closer, much like an undeniable magnetic force. Her eyes, accustomed to capturing the world's very essence through her camera's lens, now fixed on Julian with a different intensity. It was no longer merely the curiosity of novelty or the allure of power. It was a quest for something he occasionally let slip in an almost inaudible sigh, in a melancholic gaze directed towards the sprawling Manhattan skyline, or in the way his fingers drummed absently on the dark wood study desk during a quiet dinner. She began to perceive the fissures in the formidable armor he wore, the subtle cracks that hinted at the crushing weight of an unseen burden. One evening, amidst the gentle breeze, as the subtle, sophisticated scent of designer room fragrances permeated the Sterling Manor's manicured gardens, Julian, with a distant gaze that seemed to pierce through the city's vast expanse, murmured about the invisible weight of a legacy that, paradoxically, isolated him. It was not a complaint, but a cold, resigned observation. He spoke of the overwhelming responsibility to maintain the order and prosperity of Sterling Enterprises and its people, a heritage that belonged not merely to him, but to generations before. "Every decision, Chloe," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper that the evening wind seemed intent on carrying away, "does not affect just one individual, but hundreds, thousands. The family's expectations, the traditions that shape us. It is a powerful current that allows no deviation." Chloe, with her heightened sensitivity, discerned the melancholy in his eyes, the emotional scar he carried, as discreet as the physical one on his left temple, yet infinitely more profound. She saw beyond the gleam of gold and silk, beyond the power that enveloped him like a regal mantle. She saw the man behind the title, a man who, despite everything, was profoundly solitary. In that moment, he was not the charming predator who had invited her into a game of pleasure, but a complex human being, with his own vulnerabilities and burdens, quite unlike anyone else she had ever known. This subtle revelation of his humanity struck her deeply, shattering the one-dimensional image Chloe had held of him and cultivating fertile ground for a connection far deeper than the physical. He never victimized himself. He merely articulated the stark reality of his existence, almost as if testing her capacity to truly comprehend the intricate complexity of his world. Julian subtly alluded to the sting of a corporate betrayal that had deeply scarred him, rendering him skeptical of loyalty, hardening him against naivete. "In power," he explained, his voice grave, "smiles are often masks and promises, mere sand slipping through one's fingers. One must always be a step ahead, perpetually wary. It is a high price for the security of our legacy and those who depend on it, but it is a price I pay without hesitation." She felt the coolness in his words, the distance he imposed as a defense mechanism, and in some peculiar way, it moved her. It was a solitude that she, in her own modest measure, understood well. Feeling strangely secure within that gilded refuge, Chloe began to peel back the intricate layers of her own soul. She spoke of her camera, not merely as a tool for her craft, but as an extension of her gaze, a shield against her shyness, and a bridge to the broader world. "It's as if I can perceive things differently through the lens, you know," she confessed, her voice soft yet imbued with palpable passion. "To capture a moment, a profound feeling, is like holding a sliver of eternity. It's my way of expressing myself, of feeling a part of something, of leaving my indelible mark." She shared her deepest fears, the gnawing apprehension of abandonment, shaped by a childhood with absent parents, perpetually in pursuit of something she could never quite decipher. "I always felt a little lost, somewhat adrift. Like a rudderless boat," she admitted, a wistful smile playing on her lips. "Photography gave me purpose, a way to discover beauty even amidst solitude. I seek a place in this vast world, a place to truly call my own, where I needn't fear being left behind." The dynamic between them gracefully evolved from that of a mentor and protégé to something far more akin to confidants. Their conversations, once centered on pleasure and sensory discovery, now delved into life philosophies, into shared dreams and deep-seated scars. Julian listened to Chloe with an unwavering attention she had never before experienced. He did not interrupt her, merely observed, absorbing every word, every subtle nuance of her expression. He perceived in her a purity and resilience that were profoundly rare in his insulated world, a vibrant soul that adamantly refused to be tamed. One particular morning, as Julian was lost in a moment of quiet introspection within his private library, Deeply absorbed in ancient hardback volumes, Chloe unexpectedly caught sight of him. The golden light of the morning sun filtered through the arched windows, softly illuminating his distinguished profile. He was devoid of his usual CEO composure, his brow furrowed in deep concentration, the discreet scar on his left temple almost imperceptible, yet undeniably present. His eyes, typically so alert and penetrating, were softened by his immersion in the text. It was a moment of pure vulnerability, of profound quietude, a rare glimpse into his unguarded soul. Chloe instinctively raised her camera. The gentle click of the shutter seemed a thunderclap in the room's silence, yet Julian did not even stir. In that precise instant, as she captured his image through her lens, Chloe perceived the profound beauty of his soul, not merely the grandeur of his power. It was neither physical attractiveness nor the imposing weight of his position, but the sheer depth of his being, the intricate complexity of his emotions, the veiled solitude she could now clearly discern. She felt a poignant pang in her chest, a blend of tenderness and an attraction that transcended mere carnal desire. It was the beauty of a man who carried the world upon his shoulders, yet for one brief, unguarded moment, allowed himself to simply be. Julian, lifting his gaze to meet hers, recognized what she had done. A slight, rare, and utterly genuine smile softened his lips. The ephemeral lightness of that moment of connection would soon be eclipsed by the shadow of intrigue, spreading through the polished marble halls of the Sterling Manor. The walls, once silent witnesses to burgeoning passion, now seemed to reverberate with whispers and gossip that ignited like wildfire among the staff and the elite circle. Chloe's presence, an outsider guest spending days in Julian's private West Wing, was a feast for curiosity and judgment. "Can you even believe it? The nerve!" younger socialites would murmur, while the older matriarchs wrinkled their noses, deeply concerned about the erosion of their hallowed traditions. Victor Sterling, Julian's cousin, observed everything with calculated disdain. He was a man forged by tradition, ambition coursing through his veins like the blood of his ancestors. The notion of Julian entangling himself with an outsider, a woman of no known lineage within their elite New York circles, was a direct affront to family honor and, crucially, a potent threat to the stability he so fiercely coveted. Victor saw in Chloe not a person, but a flaw, a hairline crack in Julian's formidable armor that could be exploited to destabilize the CEO's position and clear his own ascent to power. He began to investigate Chloe with the stealth of a predator in the urban jungle, seeking any detail, any misstep that he could leverage to discredit her, or even better, to paint Julian as a weak leader, susceptible to fleeting exotic whims. Victor dispatched his informants to the Manhattan global market, searching for whispers, attempting to unearth anything that might tarnish the inherent purity Julian seemed to perceive in her. Concurrently, Eleanor Sterling, Julian's mother, sensed the gravity of the unfolding situation. A woman of immense dignity and an unwavering guardian of their traditions, she loved her son above all else, yet also bore the immense weight of responsibility for their lineage and the future of the Sterling Empire. The intensity of the connection between Julian and the young woman from Toledo had not escaped her discerning eye. With her ancestral wisdom, Eleanor resolved to approach Chloe, not with overt hostility, but with a blend of veiled curiosity and subtle admonition. One afternoon, as Chloe explored one of the exquisite interior gardens of the Sterling Manor, her camera hanging from her neck, Eleanor found her. "Chloe Davis, correct?" Eleanor's voice was soft, yet imbued with an undeniable authority. Chloe turned, surprised, and offered a respectful nod. "Yes, ma'am. It's an honor to meet you." Eleanor offered a faint smile, her discerning eyes appraising the young woman from Ohio from head to toe. "Julian has spoken of you, of your passion for photography. It is a beautiful art, but life here, my dear, is more complex than a still image." She guided Chloe to a marble bench, offering her a delicate cup of herbal tea. "My son bears the weight of centuries of tradition upon his shoulders. Every decision he makes reverberates throughout our entire enterprise and legacy. It is a responsibility many simply do not comprehend." Chloe felt the gravity of the words, a shiver tracing her spine. I understand that Mr. Sterling has many responsibilities, ma'am. Do you truly understand? Eleanor questioned, her voice a shade firmer. You came for a game, did you not? A game of fleeting pleasures. But pleasure, Chloe, is ephemeral. Life, duty, true love, these are eternal. Are you willing to confront not merely the heart of a man, but the very heart of an entire dynasty? Eleanor gazed deeply at her. Julian is a man of immense power, yet also of immense heart. He is pragmatic, but his soul runs deep. He sees something in you, something pure, yes. But purity is not always sufficient to sustain the immense burden he carries. Consider carefully, Chloe. The freedom he promised you might come with a price you are utterly unprepared to pay. The conversation ended, leaving Chloe with a knot in her throat, and a chilling sensation that the ground beneath her feet was far less firm than it had appeared. From that day forward, Chloe began to feel the immense pressure of the external world. The gazes in the hushed corridors of the Sterling Manor seemed heavier, the whispers more frequent. The previously warm hospitality of some staff members gave way to a veiled coolness. She realized her game with Julian carried implications that extended far beyond the two of them. The promise of freedom at the week's end, the offered wealth, now felt like a cruel mirage. How could she possibly leave when she was already entangled not merely in Julian's embrace, but also in the intricate webs of his culture and his formidable power? Her long-held fear of abandonment, shaped by a childhood with absent parents, now transmuted into the terror of being rejected by a world she simply did not comprehend, or worse, the dread of losing Julian to that very same world. Chloe's security, once a distant concern, became a tangible, gnawing anguish. She acutely sensed Victor's hostility, though she had never spoken directly with him. She felt the crushing weight of cultural expectations, the unspoken rules that seemed to encircle her. The very real danger of existing within a world where the codes were different and the consequences severe was beginning to manifest itself. This was no mere game of seduction. It was a high-stakes play for power, and she had unwittingly become the central pawn. Julian, in turn, was acutely aware of Victor's cunning maneuvers and his mother's deep concern. His sharp eyes missed not a single subtle shift within their rarefied circle. He observed the disapproving glances, felt the palpable tension in the air. The affection he harbored for Chloe had deepened into something far more potent and undeniable, something he was utterly unwilling to sacrifice. He redoubled Chloe's protection, assigning even more discreet security personnel to watch over her. Yet he also felt the escalating pressure to conclude their arrangement and confront the repercussions of his profound choice. He knew he had to act, and act swiftly, before Victor could inflict irreparable damage. One evening, Julian summoned Chloe to the Sterling secret garden. Moonlight silvered the delicate botanicals and the serene water feature. The silence was broken only by the distant hum of the city, a familiar lullaby. "Chloe," he began, his voice grave and laden with a newfound solemnity. "The week is over. You are free to go. You will have the promised wealth. But I cannot free you." His dark eyes fixed upon hers, revealing a vulnerability she had never witnessed before. "I cannot lose you. This place, my world, my life, it holds no meaning without you. I would lock you here within my very heart if it were necessary." Chloe watched him, her heart thrumming. Victor's veiled threat, Eleanor's subtle warnings, her profound fear of abandonment. Everything swirled in her mind. But gazing at Julian, she saw not a captor, but a man who, for the first time, was laying bare his own profound fragility. She realized that his talk of locking her away was not a prison, but a desperate plea for permanence, a fervent desire to build a home with her. Her camera, once her shield, now felt heavy and superfluous in her hands. She no longer wished merely to observe the world. She longed to be an intrinsic part of it, of his world. "Julian," she said, her voice choked with emotion, "I do not wish to leave. I do not desire the wealth if it means losing you. I have found something in you that I have never possessed, a place to truly belong." The words flowed out like a surging river, liberating the dam of her deepest fears. "I choose you." That very same week, Julian convened a Sterling Enterprises board meeting. Victor was present, a smug smile playing on his lips, certain that the CEO would be compelled to relinquish the outsider. Eleanor watched, her face a carefully composed mask of concern. Julian, imposing in his bespoke formal wear, gazed at each family member. "My decision has been made," he declared, his voice resonating through the opulent boardroom. "Chloe Davis will be my wife. She will be the potential sterling matriarch." A murmur rippled through the room. Victor attempted to interject, "Julian, this is an affront to our sacred traditions. An outsider with no established lineage." Julian cut him off with a piercing gaze that instantly silenced his cousin. "My lineage is strong enough to embrace the new, Victor. Her heart is pure, her spirit indomitable. She will bring a fresh perspective, a new strength to our enterprise. Those who question my choice question my authority, and that I will not permit." Eleanor, witnessing her son's unyielding determination and sensing the profound truth in his words, stepped forward. "My son has made his decision, and I support it. May the legacy prosper with this union." Her endorsement, coming from the matriarch herself, sealed the matter. Victor recoiled, his ambition temporarily thwarted, yet the flicker of his rivalry still glinted ominously in his eyes. Chloe, standing beside Julian, felt a dizzying mixture of trepidation and euphoria. She was not merely entering a marriage, but embarking upon an entirely new life, within a profoundly different culture, with a man who dared to defy his entire world for her. That initial game of pleasure had transformed into a life-or-death gamble, and she had unequivocally chosen to play with her heart. Julian, with his discreet scar, now seemed utterly complete, his hidden vulnerability revealed, yet not weakened, by her steadfast presence. In the ensuing months, Chloe adapted, not without significant challenges, to life within the Sterling Empire. She was not merely the CEO's wife. She was a bridge between two worlds. A woman who, with her camera and her open heart, brought a fresh luminescence to the storied halls of the Sterling Manor. She learned to cherish the intricate complexity of that world, the vibrant hues of the Manhattan global market, the serene quietude of the Sterling secret garden, and Julian, with Chloe by his side, discovered a profound real pleasure that transcended mere senses, the pleasure of loving and being loved by a woman who challenged him, completed him, and made him an even more just and empathetic leader. Their story blossomed into a legend, a tale of how love can ignite in unexpected places and dismantle ancient barriers, illustrating that true wealth lies not in gold, but in the connection of two souls. And you, have you ever been swept away by a love story that defies every expectation? Drop a like, subscribe to our channel for more captivating tales, and tell us in the comments what you thought of Chloe and Julian's unforgettable journey.